This episode is sponsored by the Freedom Builder System. For just $57 a month, you can get my custom Biz Builder AI, plus membership in the Freedom Builder community. Think of it as having me, your personal business coach and corporate escape Sherpa, right in your pocket 24/7. Biz Builder AI is your business building tool with 5 Sherpas in one powerful tool. It's a coach in AI form that helps you choose the right idea, create offers, build your financial runway, and market yourself without the cringe. And the Freedom Builder membership gives you the training, community, and accountability to actually follow through. So you're never doing this alone. Think of it as clarity, tools, and support all in one for less than the cost of a dinner out and a fraction of what you'd spend on private coaching. Check the show notes for the link, and let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to the Gen X Remix, Midlife, Laughs, and Next Acts, the podcast for bold Gen X women who are done playing small and are ready to build a business or career that lights them up. I'm your host, Tabitha Jones, the corporate escape Sherpa and career advancement and leadership coach. Before we dive into today's episode, I just want to give a quick shout out about my upcoming workshop, Escape with Confidence, Clarity, Purpose, and Action for Your Bold Next Act. It's the perfect workshop for Gen X women who are ready to finally get serious about building their next chapter with clarity, courage, and a step-by-step plan before you leave your day job. You'll find the links in the show notes to grab your spot. All right, today's guest is the amazing Linda Cohen, known as the Kindness Catalyst. Linda is an international keynote speaker who helps organizations embrace kindness as a business strategy, not just that feel-good extra. She believes that kindness is a leadership skill and a crucial component of company culture, from improving morale and retention to reducing burnout and increasing engagement. Linda's journey is a remix of its own. She re-entered the workforce in her 40s after being a stay-at-home mom and transformed her personal grief into a global message about the ROI of kindness. Today, she's here to share her story, her wisdom, and why kindness is a power move at any age. Let's get into it. Linda, welcome to the Gen X Remix. How are you doing today?
I'm so great. And I'm so happy to be talking with you today, Tabitha.
Oh my gosh, same. I was reviewing your information and stalking all over your website earlier and can't wait to dive into this conversation. So I like to kick off every episode by asking my guests to share their remix story. We would love to hear yours.
So fabulous. I was a full-time stay-at-home mom for about 12 years after I had gotten my master's degree and knew that I wanted to, be a professional woman. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I stepped back into some kind of a career path. And that was after my first book got published. That kind of kicked me back into working world. So that's kind of my little remix.
That's quite a remix. So how exactly, I'm just diving in. I can't even wait to hear the story. Like, how do you go from that master's degree to stay-at-home mom to, I'm just going to shake this stuff up at 40? Tell us about that story.
Exactly. So my master's degree is in actually fundraising. So that was the perfect thing to be doing all the years I was a stay-at-home mom. Every organization wants help with fundraising, their auctions or anything else. So I sat on board of a camp, and I also was part of our PTO, of course, doing auction things. And my remix kind of began in 2006 with a phone call from my dad, and he lived on the East Coast. I'm out here on the West Coast. And he said, Linda, I got diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. I have less than a year. And so when I got that call, I was 38. I was married. I already had 2 small children, about ages 5 and 8. And I knew I had to do something with my relationship with my dad because it was really one that felt stuck. Like I was still 16 and he was still parenting me. So I did fly back to Vermont. We had a wonderful long weekend together. We did a little bit of healing, beginning of the healing. And the last 8 months of my dad's life were really an unexpected gift. And after he passed away, December 1st, 2006, which was my son Solomon's sixth birthday, we were really in a different place. And so after his death, I took on a project, which I call my 1000 Mitzvahs Project. This was a project to honor my father, really, and to do 1,000 mitzvahs, which is the Jewish word for a good deed or an act of kindness. There are also commandments. The 10 commandments fall into that category. But it was really a personal project. But that project really changed my life. I could never have said before that what would happen. And what happened was I basically launched a speaking, writing career around this topic of kindness due to that little project that I had taken on to heal from my own grief.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your father. That's definitely not easy. The fact that you had that gift of time is incredible. And I can't even imagine how much that changed things for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I do encourage other people, if anybody's listening, I say don't wait, because I'm so glad I took that opportunity. It could have been just as easy not to, and that would have been a different story. That would have been a different story.
Yeah, for sure. So I just have so many things that you've just said that my mind's like, bam, on a lot of things here. So the 1,000 mitzvahs, acts of kindness, for those of us who are not as familiar with the term mitzvahs,
Yeah.
I love that because there's so many things that we can do that make somebody's day better, someone's life better. They're just small. They're just small things. But tell us a little bit about some of the mitzvahs you chose to act out and pay forward.
So funny. I haven't been asked that in such a long time because my work has really morphed now into corporate audiences. But those first 1,000 mitzvahs, they were many of them were just simple little things, maybe volunteering in the classroom for my kids or letting someone in traffic. I learned how to drive on the East Coast, and now I was living out on the West Coast, not honking at someone, smiling at someone, putting your phone down and really connecting with people. Although I will say in those days, there weren't really phones in our pockets every minute. So maybe there was a little less than that. But it was also, showing up for a funeral or showing up to visit someone who was dealing with some kind of a medical situation. None of them in and of themselves were life-changing. They were things that every one of us probably does on a regular basis. But the fact that I was counting them and looking for them really made my intentional actions count, because they were changing how I was now going about and looking for things every day.
Yeah, I love that. I think the reason I wanted to tap on that a little bit is because often as women, and I say it a lot, we are list checker offers. We go and just do the thing. And we never stop and think about what was the impact of that thing. And like you just shared, showing up at a funeral, being there to support somebody who needed you. We don't always think about it like that. It's like, oh gosh, I just got to go do this thing and get it out of the way. We don't think about how much it means to the family or to that close friend that you're there beside them, holding hands, sharing that hug. Or, for me, I'm a little bit of an oddball. I love making eye contact with people and saying hello to them and watching the expressions. And most of the time it's like, did you just say something to me? And I'm like, yeah, I did. But it's just those little things and they have such a big impact and you never know.
And I also want to just share with you, you
is.
just reminded me of a story. It's so funny because there's 100,000 stories in my head, but a story just popped into my head as you were talking about what we do for someone else. During the Mitzvah Project, I remember it was probably my son's 8th birthday. So 2 years after my father had died. And it was actually kind of a blessing. He died on my son's birthday so that in the ensuing years, I had something to celebrate on those days. And I was really celebrating my son, and it helped not feel quite so sad. But one of those years, 2 years later, I offered to take a child home after my son's birthday party. And I remember getting in the car after I had just done a birthday party for my 8-year-old. And I was like, why did I offer to do this? Because it was not something I wanted to do, to drive a kid across town. And I can't remember why I was doing that, but something was going on with the family. And so I offered to do that. And I didn't have anybody else in the car with me. So once I dropped the child off, I had the whole drive home, which was probably about a half an hour drive home, just to decompress. And I remember at the time, time feeling like that was a real honor and a blessing to be able to have that time myself after the party, after dropping the child off. So the other thing that can happen is sometimes these things aren't just for the person you're doing them for. Sometimes there's a benefit to ourselves as well. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure why that story popped into my head, but I thought it was worth sharing.
No,
So
I love it. We just do things and we don't always realize that impact. I mean, that you helped that mom, you made it so that the child could actually come to the birthday party, because maybe if you hadn't done that, and then giving yourself that bit of reflection time and just unwind time on your way back home, that's great. So then, as I was stalking you, I was reading, because kindness is such a key part of your business, where you talk about how kindness is no longer a nice to have in the workplace. Now, I led corporate teams for many, many years, and kindness is a value that I always led with. I think that people get to this space where they're leaders, they feel like they've got to wear this suit of armor, and we can't let anyone know we have feelings, or can't let anyone know that anything bothers us. I've had employees see me cry. Like, they'll tell me something, and I'm not a super emotional person, but like it would just touch me so much. And, you'd hear from somebody else, well, you should never. I'm like, well, sometimes things are very, you feel that. So I want to dive in a little bit to your philosophy on that culture of kindness, and kind of what got that started and moving
yeah,
forward.
thank you. Thanks for that question. So I will say that I began after my first book came out, which was really about mitzvahs and doing little acts of kindness and how that had transformed my life. I got invited to speak at, nonprofits and schools, and I was doing a lot of that work for the first couple of years. And in about 2014, I started realizing I was paying attention to businesses that kind of seemed like they were kinder than other places. I was going to them, I was frequenting them, maybe they were businesses that I went to. And so I started thinking about this and how can companies make a difference to their employees. So that's when I created my economy of kindness, how kindness transforms your bottom line keynote. I probably delivered that for the first time in 2013. And that was this opportunity to really start to talk about why does kindness matter in the workplace? And of course, you are not the first person to ask me this. Is it it's a soft skill. It's not something people necessarily want to talk about. And yet the leaders who lead with empathy and compassion and kindness, they have employees who will follow them to every job they're ever at, right? Because they feel seen, they feel valued, they feel like they belong, they feel like that manager is supporting their own personal development in a bigger way than outside of the organization generally. So if you want to be a good manager, manage with kindness and empathy and learn skills how to do that. If you don't want to be a good manager, then keep doing what you're doing, because you can be the one who doesn't share anything about yourself, and it's all about productivity and it's all about, fear-based leadership, but that's probably not going to get you as far as you hope with your people. So at this point, I get to work with businesses and organizations all around the globe. And it's such an honor to be able to see the kind of leadership that does step into kindness and how they value that and how they show up at their team meetings and how they recognize their staff. And so it's really, and I get to be part of that, but I'm also learning and witnessing. And my second book is actually all the stories I had heard in the first few years of working, in that topic, and all the stories I wanted people to hear and know about as well.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Oh my gosh, I really need to read your book. I'm adding it to my list for sure. Because the thing that is so interesting, and I left my job as I was an executive director of a nationwide team at the time I decided to leave, and empathy wasn't really highly regarded in that last culture that I was part of, and it drove me nuts. That's where I finally was like, I'm not aligned anymore, and things need to change. But when I sit back and I look at my career, I'm like, how many people worked, I'll say for me because of the organizational chart, that are still in touch with me, that still reach out to me for trusted advice, that are friends that will go out to lunch or dinner and hang out and kind of catch up. Or my old team still includes me in their lunch date that they do every summer to get together. And I think that just reminds me of what an impact an empathetic leader can have on people's lives. And it makes a difference. Meanwhile, you've got those sitting back saying, well, work is work. And like, oh, well, you spend more than half your life there. It's really not. It's a lot
Fortunately
more
not.
than
And I
that.
think these days people will leave a company where they, especially younger generation, they don't want to, they're not willing to do maybe what the baby boomers were willing to do, to trade
Right.
a life and no balance and nobody who cares about me. I just don't think they're willing to do it anymore. And I think we're going to see lots of changes in the ensuing years. We already are, but, because we need to treat people like human beings. We need to treat them as whole people who have life happening outside of the organization that they are serving at that time. So, and there are so many things I talk about in my workshop about giving grace, and allowing people to, because understandably things are happening outside of the workplace. And if somebody doesn't
Weird.
show up and isn't their best today, maybe you want to say, how are you doing? How is your family? What should I know? Just some simple questions so I can know what's going on for my people. So I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I'm like thinking about right now, what could a leader do for me? I'm like, probably acknowledge the fact that I'm having this crazy hot flash. I'm like, I keep turning pink. I'm like, I'm hot.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry, squirrel and also very pink. So let's kind of pop into what kind of, and I'm just curious, what kind of resistance have you met, if any, as you're sharing this message across different organizations?
I don't think I've met as much resistance as you would think. I think that the organizations that pick me up and want me to come talk about this is on their radar and they'd like to know more. They want to be able to train their leaders. In fact, I've started doing work with healthcare and senior living organizations that really want to take on like a kindness initiative. We really want to bring this to all of our communities or all of our centers. How can we elevate what's going on in a more intentional way? And so it's pushed me actually as a professional to create more tools and more guides and more resources and find out. In fact, I just had a call today, and I know this will come out in a few, several weeks or whatever, but I had a call today with a client and we're talking about onboarding with kindness and what happens in those first 30 and 60 days. And they know that they're not doing it fabulously because they know that they have too much of a turnover rate in those first 30 or 60 days. So I'm starting to think about
Mm.
what kind of tools could we have that we could onboard and orient people into an organization that I know is a fabulous organization. I just don't want them to not have good onboarding so people get into the culture in a positive way. So I think that'll be my next training tool probably is onboarding with kindness.
That needs to happen. I've had clients where I've helped find new jobs very quickly within a short amount of time because the onboarding was not what you would expect. And that empathy and kindness is such an important piece of it. You can't put an adult human in a cubicle and say, go watch these videos all day, every day
No,
for the first
I
six
know.
weeks.
I
it's,
know, I know, I know, I
it's
know.
not
I
how it
agree
works.
with you. That isn't how it works. They're not going to feel like they're in an organization that cares about them for sure. So
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to hear how where this goes and what comes next. So let's talk a little bit about, the Gen X kind of piece of this. Do you see some differences when it comes to that kindness or empathy coming maybe a little more naturally based on generations, or do you see that at all?
That's a great question. And I can't really say that I know as much as you would think about that. I have led some generational trainings where we talk about what am I good at if I'm a baby boomer and what am I good at if I'm a Gen Xer. And we're having trouble in our culture. So, how can we know more about each other? So, in that way, it's more educating each other on the things and a lot of times it's mentoring and technology come out as the two things that, maybe different generations know more about. And I'm kind of going to the edges of who's in the workforce now. But I feel like there is definitely just a getting to know you piece. I think that when we don't make assumptions about another person in another generation or another culture or another language, when we actually get down to it, we're kind of similar. All of us are similar in many ways, but then we're told that we're different. We're told that we don't have similarities, and unfortunately, that's like the language of our times. Is that we're different, we're other. And I actually was thinking about this recently. Of course, I haven't added this to a talk, but I would love to ask a group of people to raise their hands if they've ever felt othered because I think we would probably all raise our hands in some capacity that we have felt othered in some situation. But when it comes down to it, we want health, we want safety, we want to be with our families, we probably want to have play and joy and peace. And I think those are the things underlying everybody's experience, and how that plays out is different for everybody, and traditions and food and language, whatever. But bottom line, I think we're a lot more similar than we're told or we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that if we can find some things we can agree on and build up from there, we'll be a lot stronger and happier than we are if we're constantly fighting about our differences. And yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I think that celebrating differences, all types of diversity, is so important in the workplace. But then it's, what can I learn from you? What can you learn from me? And let's bring that forward.
Yeah, and I've
And
seen that done in some really unique ways. As I'm in senior living a lot, I speak a lot in senior living, and I've seen that because those are little microcosms. You think about a community of people in assisted living, you've got people from all over the world, all different ages. And if there's a way to bring together the differences, that's a place where you can really do it well. So I love being able to see that happen in a microcosm of an assisted living community.
really cool. And it kind of brings the conversation. I don't know why it's randomly bringing this conversation to me, but I met a young lady who works in assisted living. And I say young lady, she's probably, I don't know, early 30s, but younger than me. We'll go there. Who works in assisted living. And we were talking about how she's kind of struggling with a networking group she's part of. And a peer of hers is very opposite of her, an older white male who has said that, the reason I got into this business is because I looked at the data. The data shows that's where the money's at.
Mhm.
And she said, I'm here because of my heart and because I want to take care of older people and to know that my mom has a safe place to go and my friend's mom has a safe place to go. And I said, well, that just tells me you're in the wrong networking group. Like, you need to find the people that are heart centered. You need to find the people that are empathetic and they're in it and doing it for the right reasons. Yes, we all need to make money. We all need to feed ourselves and do those things. But the reality is sometimes people just aren't in your circle. And that was a conversation we had. So if I cross paths with her again, I may send her your way to get some more
Yeah.
tidbits.
Definitely send her my way to get more tidbits. I would say the other thing is, like, you just made a good point, which is sometimes we don't talk about kindness to self, but you've just brought up something, maybe you're in a group, you're in a networking group, a Toastmasters, whatever group you've joined, and maybe you played out your time in that group and it's time to move on, or it's time to find a different group because maybe you've changed or evolved and it doesn't fit anymore. And I guess I'm thinking about that in terms of my own reboots or remixes in many iterations. When I was first going to become a speaker, I created a mastermind group of 6 amazing entrepreneurial women because I was kind of stepping out from being a stay-at-home mom to being now this business owner. And I really felt huge imposter syndrome in that time. So I created this mastermind group, and they were an amazing, wonderful group of women. And we were together for like 7 years. And then, my speaking business had taken off. My first book was out, and it wasn't quite the right fit anymore. And I sort of felt bad. And I remember talking to them. We were meeting I think we met every 2 weeks, or maybe it was once a month. I can't quite remember. But I went to them and I said, I think it's time for me to move on. And that felt so sad for me. And I thought they would stay together anyway, but the group kind of disseminated at that moment anyway. And it was okay. It was the end of something and opened a door for the next thing that was opening up and coming my way. So, which probably was the board of Toastmasters or the board of the National Speakers Association. There were new things that came along, and you don't always know what's coming, but it's okay to let something go when it feels like it's run its course.
Yeah, I love that you just said that out loud. I joke about Gen X, right? We're so feral. We just do whatever we want. We don't care. But then I also am like, oh, do I have permission to do that? Is it okay? Do I need to get opinions? Like, stop it. Just take the
Right.
feral side. Like, when you feel like it's not serving you anymore, just gracefully go to the next thing.
Go to the next one.
And that's the key, right? Communication and leaving with kindness. I'd say, I'm sure you've told those women that, we can stay in touch. If you need something, reach out. But
Yeah.
it's time for the next leg of the
And a
journey.
few of those people were so instrumental in my own confidence building. And I remember one of them, she was running these conferences. And this was at the time, like, I was a stay-at-home mom, just starting my speaking business. I had gotten a contract for my first book, but it wasn't written. It wasn't materialized yet. And we're at this conference and I introduce myself and I say, oh, well, I'm just a mom. And she
Mm.
literally like elbows me and she said, Linda, why don't you tell her you just got a contract for your first published book? And I like felt so sheepish, but she did hold the mirror up for me to be able to say, you're right, I did. It just didn't feel real yet, So I think about her, and I haven't not seen her in years, but I think about her for sure. And that I've told that story before as well. So we
Yeah.
grow, we learn. I would say the one thing, I know you're saying you're having a little bit of hot happening to you. I think one of the coolest thing about getting to this stage of our lives, my life, is the learning that's come, the wisdom that come. I started emerging leadership series last fall. I decided there was a niche in the world that I didn't feel was filled. It was men and women who were about to become leaders or new leaders, not feeling particularly ready and steady in that place. And so I created these emerging leadership series. And I'm on my second cohort right now, and I'm loving it. It's a totally different group this second time around than the first one was. But I kind of felt like my kids are grown and I miss that mothering piece. And this kind of gave me a little bit of a place to put some of those confidence, imposter syndrome, communication, all those things that I'd been talking about in place. Now, I'm joking, but this second cohort, many of them are just a little younger than me. This is not a group that's significantly younger than me, but they're still at the place where they're looking to grow. So I think that's good too.
I love that. Oh my gosh, we have so much in common in that space too. I always joke about nobody gives you a promotion handbook. Like there's not these are the ways to do it. I actually wrote the book on promotion readiness
Yeah.
because I'm like, I keep sharing the same things. But like you said, right, getting that imposter syndrome out of your way, clearing that little voice that's just telling you things that really aren't true, but some little thing happened, or maybe one person made this comment and it holds people back in their careers for years and years. And it's really great the work that you're doing and giving that additional layer of support to help them kind of move forward and build.
Yeah,
It's
and
so
it
good.
feels like I'm growing too. Like both the give and take. And I
Yeah.
start the session by basically saying like today's the beginning of the rest of our lives, for all of us. And I want to create a safe space where we can both be the teacher and be the student, and myself included. So and of
Yeah.
course already we've only had, I know by the time this airs it's going to be fully wrapped up for the spring, but right now we're only a couple sessions in, and it's just I'm loving it. And I will be completely honest, I can say this now. I didn't have a full cohort until like 2 weeks before, and I was totally stressing out. How am I going to fill this cohort? I knew there had to be people in the world, but it was very stressful. I had to trust the process that the right people would show up and I wrote it on my calendar, the boxes of whose names would be in here. I did that for both of my sessions. It filled up. It filled up, and the right people were in both cohorts. So it's pretty cool.
That's what is so interesting is you always find the right people come towards you. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know, moss to a light bulb. I don't know what the right term is, but they
Mhm.
do. They just kind of show up once they hear your message and see what you're doing, or maybe speak to someone who's gone through the process with you.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that for you. So, as someone who reinvented herself in her 40s, what advice do you have for Gen X women who want to reinvent themselves in their 40s, 50s, and even beyond?
Well, I would say never put a time limit on it. I kind of think one of the reasons I love working in senior living, and my very first job was in senior living in my 20s. And I don't think it was a good fit then because I couldn't lose residents when they passed away. It was just too hard. At my 20s, I couldn't deal with mortality yet. Now that I'm in my mid 50s, obviously I know that that's part of life. But I would say don't decide that any age limits you. I feel like I want to keep growing into my 90s. I've watched stories. I actually watched the coolest story about a woman who got taken to Australia as part of an organization at 101 years old. She had traveled the entire globe, but she had never been to the continent of Australia and wanted to go there. And it was just really inspiring because it tells you that you never have to stop learning, you never have to stop growing, and you can learn new things at every age. So that would be the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is find people who believe in you, and it may not be your family, it may not be your siblings, it may not be your parents, but find people. And I will lovingly say that I started that mastermind group originally because my husband was not the supporter at that time. He could not see what I also could not see yet, but I felt like I was being pulled with this little voice to go into this next path. And now he's 100% a champion. He's so proud of the business that I've created. But find people who can be your supporters. And if it means you create a mastermind group or you join a support group or you just create a couple of girlfriends or male friends, whoever it is, have people around you who see and hold the mirror to you. So that when you get discouraged, you have somebody who says, but you wrote it, you have a book contract. So they're holding that mirror for you, even when you don't see it yourself.
I love that advice so much. So two things on that. So one, the age piece, it's never too late. I was at the California Conference for Women a few months ago, and Jane Fonda spoke, and she's 80, can't remember, 86 maybe.
Yes.
And she just got up like it's nobody's business, had this great conversation, talked about the changes and transformations she's going through, the politics stuff that the political side of things that she's still standing up for. And just was so inspiring. And I thought, man, if I can first off get out of a chair that easily at 86, I'm going to feel very blessed. But second of all, like be on these big stages and share a message and empower women and just get everyone rallying behind me and still be learning and growing as a human. I think that's
I think there's going to be more of us
well
doing
lived.
that. I think there's going to be more of us doing it because I think we are seeing that already, that 60s, 70s, 80s is no end to something, So I think that there will be more for us to continue to push through.
That's such an exciting thing. And your other piece about, who you surround yourself with, I explain this a lot as I'm helping women leave corporate after decades in corporate roles.
Mm-hmm.
Your identity shifts. People around you will shift. The people you thought were going to be your biggest cheerleaders, they may not recognize you anymore. They knew you as a badass in corporate. They don't know you as an entrepreneur who's changing lives in a different way. And they don't always know how to support you. Yeah. And a girlfriend, she recently left a corporate job after many years as well. We were talking about her situation. She's like, I just don't feel like my husband gets it. And he can't really support me because he can't see the vision. And I said, well, it's different. Mm-hmm. You've been together for this long and it's different. And it doesn't make sense until it makes sense. So do surround yourself, to your point, with people who get it, people who see it, people who've been there and done that. Who can just help you elevate and grow so much faster. It's excellent advice. If our audience, and I'm sure many of them will wants to connect with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'd love you to come onto LinkedIn if you're on there. I have an active presence on LinkedIn. Try to post really good and kind, positive stories when possible and share what I'm out doing in the world. I just recently got on roller skates for the first time in 25 years, and I posted about that last week. Yay. And I'm going back tonight to roller skate again because it was so much fun last week. I have a website, lindacohenconsulting.com, that talks about all the programs and trainings that I offer as well.
Excellent. We'll make sure all of those are in the show notes so people can connect with you and follow you and see what's going on and get those great roller skating stories. That's another thing, like never stop trying new things, right? I mean, there's so many great things. I'm shooting for one thing at least a month. Yeah. Roller skating, I don't know. It's been a while since I've been on skates.
You know what? It comes back to like riding a bike. I loved it. I was so into it as a young teenager. So, and I will say that, stepping out of your comfort zone, I think if you can do that regularly, which you do as a speaker. I mean, there's new stages and new audiences and new organizations, and it almost always feels a little fluttery every time you get that opportunity. So I think I've been doing that regularly, but I also encourage my emerging leaders to do that. And I think it's important to do throughout your life so that you aren't getting, rusty and stale. And trying new things and stepping out of your comfort zone is sure a good way to do it. And I know it's not easy. And I know that doesn't come easy for a lot of people, but
yeah. But I'm just going to add on to that. There's so many easy things you can do. Like, you don't want to roller skate? That's okay. Go try taking a new exercise class or try a new kind of food, just go try something that's out of your comfort zone that you've never eaten before. Worst case, you've wasted maybe $20, and best case, you might find a new love.
A new food you love. I love it.
Exactly. And I've been working on things that I can do that I can't think about anything that's stressing me out in the world right now. So I've learned that you cannot do Zumba and think about anything that makes you mad. So Zumba is my new go-to.
Oh, that's good.
And
I gotta get back
pickleball.
to a Zumba class. I haven't done Zumba in a while. That sounds fun.
There's a water Zumba class at my gym tonight. I'm kind of thinking about it.
Ooh, you should do that. That sounds really fun. Oh, I love to
Does.
swim, so I'm in the water pretty often, and Zumba in the water sounds kind of cool. I'm gonna look for that up here.
Does, right? Got to make sure I pack the bathing suit with 2 straps,
Yeah,
just in case.
definitely.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, then, before we go, Linda, is there any additional advice or inspiration you'd like to give our listeners before we sign off?
So I will give you one little piece of research about kindness. This is what I share often with my groups, and it is research that comes from Dr. Sonia Lyubomirsky. She's a psychology professor at UC Riverside, and she studied happiness and what makes us happier. 50% of your happiness comes from your biology, so you can't control that. 10% is your living circumstances or work environment. You can control that if you're paying attention to you, Tabitha, and leaving if it's not a good fit, but it's only 10%. What else is left? 40% of your internal happiness comes from your intentional actions. So when I learned that research, I understood why that Mitzvah Project was so transformative in my life, because I was looking every day for little ways I could do a little act of kindness that could make a difference out there. And it didn't matter the size of it because it was just this intentional action. So I love to share that with my organizations because I'm giving you permission as well to look for the intentional ways you could do more, even if it's little, and that'll help you be a little bit happier. And I think we all could use some of that right now.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. I'm going to add a challenge to every listener to get those 1,000 mitzvahs started. That is I think it's just such a huge lift that this society, this world needs right now. So let's do it.
You know what? I'm going to
start
send you the
tracking
link.
mine.
I'm going to send you the link to my TED Talk, which is 2011. So it's old for now, but I said the same thing. I asked people, I challenged them to do 1,000 mitzvahs to join me. So I'll give you that link just so you can put that in the show notes.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Linda. This was so fun and so inspiring. I appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you.
What an incredible conversation with Linda Cohen, the kindness catalyst. I loved hearing how her personal loss led to something so powerful. Her 1,000 Mitzvahs Project, which sparked a whole new career rooted in kindness, leadership, and impact. We also talked about why kindness is no longer optional in today's workplace and how it improves team culture, boosts retention, and even reduces burnout. As we dove into what it really means to reinvent yourself in midlife with grace, courage, and maybe a little roller skating thrown in. So here's your remix challenge for the week. Join Linda's 1,000 Mitzvah Challenge. Start tracking those small acts of kindness, whether it's letting someone merge into traffic, texting a friend who's been quiet, dropping off soup for a neighbor. It's not about perfection, it's about intention and the ripple effect it creates. Let's put something good back into the world, one mitzvah at a time. You'll see all of Linda's connection links in the show notes. And if you're ready to stop daydreaming about your next chapter and actually build it, grab my free guide, Escape with Confidence, a step-by-step roadmap to your bold next act. I'll walk you through how to plan your exit and build a life or business that truly fits who you are now. If this episode inspired you, just do me that quick favor. It could be one of your mitzvahs. Share it with a fellow Gen X woman who's ready to escape on purpose and start her own remix. Until next time, keep rewriting the rules. You're just getting started. Take care.